You are watching or listening to Strangers in Space, and for the next 60 minutes, we are going to be answering a question so profound in its nature that we've never thought to ask it before in, what is it, 13 years of podcasting? So you don't have to. Hi, I'm JR.
I'm Ian.
I'm John.
And I'm Simon.
And so the question boils down to a really simple question. Why do you like Doctor Who? But the question as it came to us was slightly more involved than that. So I shall pose the whole thing to give you an idea of what we're talking about. And for the benefit of the listener, there's just four of us on this call now, but there were supposed to be about six or seven or even eight of us all together. So others may pop in during the course of this call, or I may record a separate session, which will go afterwards on the same podcast. So when it gets to the end of this conversation, keep listening just in case. But for those just watching on video, it'll just be this one. Right.
So we're the guinea pig, so you get it right the second time, right?
I was thinking we think of as many reasons as possible, and then they've got nothing to say.
Oh,
well, they won't
nice.
know what you've said. Also, Steve Hatcher's on the other one, so there's no way that that's going to be better than this. There's no way.
Oh,
Harsh.
I mean, no, I meant that the other way around.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Okay. James Wheildon on the 9th of September. So it's important I give the date because he says I was just watching Brain of Morbius. And clearly, if I hadn't have given the date, that would have been a lie, wouldn't it? Because he would have been watching it like 4 months ago, right?
Well, no, we could have had that season box set that's just come out.
But maybe he watched it again.
Yeah.
Anyway,
13.
he carries on and says, a question for you guys occurred to me that I thought you could develop into a talking point. Why do you like Doctor Who? And then he goes on and says, what were the base influences? Brain of Morbius was the first VHS I saw, and I liked it not for the sci-fi, but for the horror. Not really Doctor Who at all. Might be worth contemplating this as a subject for discussion. So I thought, yeah, probably not. Oh, but I'd run out of things to do. So I thought, well, I'll dig this one out and do this just to give us something to tide us over until we think of something better to do.
So you're really teeing this up as a kind of premium episode.
Actually, I know I'm being disingenuous because I do think it's an interesting question. And I think
definitely.
and I think weirdly my own answer has got absolutely nothing to do with the program itself in some ways. Or rather, let's be honest, there's a whole smorgasbord of things that are part of the equation, aren't they? It's not a simple this is the thing and that's not the thing answer. It's a bit of this, a bit of that, and a bit of the other. But but also I gave you all the question before I sort of came up with a date for the podcast so that you'd all have time to, well, hopefully have time to sort of think of something. So, I mean, let's have a volunteer. Otherwise, I'll go first. And as I said, my thing is not really a sort of to do with the program in so many ways at all. Have any of you got something you'd like to bring up first? No, nobody's got something they want to bring up.
The thing is, it is a simple question, but it's complicated. And I think it's one that as fans we do try and dodge a lot because we try to come up with these little phrases to kind of cover everything, like indefinable magic. Oh, it's just got this wonderful, huge range of it can do.
It can do anything. It's the program that can do anything. Well,
yeah.
Why would that be?
And that
you
doesn't
would
get
like
to the heart of anything. Do we?
Yeah.
Are we just kind of worried about ruining our kind of childhood love of the show?
Yeah.
I think maybe I should go first because I probably have the least profound or intelligent story. So maybe
Ian, I should have known to pick on you for that very reason. Because that is always the thing, isn't it?
I feel like I'm being insulted. So for me,
well, I'm doing my best.
It's good. For me, it's that kind of indefinable magic when you're 4 or 5 when you're 4 or 5 years old and you're watching TV and you've got that Peter Howell title music. And then you've got this thing that you
Who
don't
would bother watching Doctor Who with the Peter Howell music?
a 5-year-old. And then
I think
you've got
so.
this thing where you don't really follow what's going on when you're too young, but the hero every 25 minutes is in like life-ending jeopardy, and it's just exciting. And it's the first thing I sort of had an opinion about. It was the first thing I sort of went out of my way to do and to watch and to follow. It was the first thing I sort of I mean, like when you're a kid, you like everything, you know, beans on toast, lovely, go to bed, lovely, blah 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 blah. But Doctor Who was something, and the first thing that I consciously wanted to be there for and make time for and follow every week. And because it's that first decision I made, it's not one I can ever back away from. So I'm stuck with it.
Oh yeah. How's the war between the land and the sea going for you then, Ian?
Not watched it.
Hey, so you can back away from it if it doesn't have the words Doctor and Who in the title.
I can back away from it if it does have the words Doctor Who in the title, but not forever.
Okay, fair enough. We'll catch up with you when you've caught up with it, if that ever happens.
I mean,
So, okay, so before we move on to the others, let's dig down into that. You said the Peter Howell music, right?
hmm.
So, and in many ways, I think that is a less interesting arrangement of the music than the original, but clearly it's still got that particular melody.
It's not even the melody, and it's not even the kind of ethereal radiophonic instrumentation. It's, you know, electric guitar or whatever. But it's
Ethereal, is
still,
that a euphemism for wafer thin?
if you like,
it's got his voice, the voice thing, isn't it? That thing that Peter Frampton used to use.
yeah,
He uses that.
yeah.
So it's really,
Like that.
yeah.
How about it?
It's still just electrifying, and it pins you to the sofa or the carpet or whatever you're sitting on. And it, unlike any other TV theme, it's just like, we're going somewhere different. We're doing something weird and whoa. And it's magic.
It's kind of adventure rather than that strangeness, I think.
Yeah,
It's exciting.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's certainly a music that G's you up. But here's the other thing as well. You get to the end of that music and then you get into the program, right? So the
yeah.
program cannot afford to be a disappointment after that music.
Mm.
To a 5-year-old.
I
To a
would
5-year-old.
suggest, yeah,
Yeah.
to a 5-year-old, it probably never is a disappointment because you then get the iconography. And I always kind of loved the TARDIS before I really got a handle on who the Doctor was. I like the TARDIS. I like watching it.
Well, that's
So,
it. When you're 5 and you're watching a program, there's just people doing things, right? And
yeah,
you don't know who
yeah,
the people are and you don't understand what they're doing, but they're just sort of wandering around doing stuff. But
yeah,
something like a blue box that they come and go from, you're thinking, oh, I've never seen anybody do that before.
precisely.
And so those are the things, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's the things that you do. So this is it. So we're starting to get down into it, drill into it a bit. It's the things that you see in Doctor Who that you don't see anywhere else, isn't it? Is that it?
Yeah, I think so. I think the rest of the TV you're watching at that age is cartoons, or it's the first 5 minutes of the 6 o'clock news. You
Yeah,
know, this Doctor
depending
Who
on your age.
is the program that's for you to startle and terrify and excite and educate and expand you.
I tell you something else as well. It's so when you okay, yeah, let's go back to when you're 5. I mean, hands up, did anybody start watching Doctor Who at like 15 or something rather than 4 or 5 or 6? We all watched it from about that age, right? Didn't we?
I'm younger if anything, but I don't remember
Yeah, yeah.
anything before 5.
Oh
My
yeah,
parents will
yeah.
tell you I was like 3 or 4 and I was glued to it. And
Oh
I had
yeah.
the Tom Baker like cardboard TARDIS and Gareth Hunt doll.
Right. Yeah,
But I
no.
couldn't.
I think me and Simon, for at
Yeah.
least, if not all three of us, would have been what. Well, at that age, you only had 3 TV channels, and we were on BBC One, so we'd probably all watched it from the age of about.
Yeah. First I remember is City of Death, so it would be 5, yeah.
My point being, at that age, grown-up programs like the news, or programs that are on in the early evening, which would probably be playing in the background as you're having a bath or getting ready for bed or whatever. If they're grown-up programs, they are, like I say, just a bunch of grown-ups walking around doing stuff that's boring, because it's the kind of stuff that your mum or dad might do when they're not giving all their attention to you. So when their attention is with other people, you lose interest, and that's what's going on in these other programs. Or you get the kids' programs, and as Iain said, sometimes they're cartoons. Okay, you understand. I mean, even at that age, you understand there's a difference between a cartoon and live action. You might not be able to understand what the difference is, but you can tell there's a difference, right? So in the cartoons, weird shit happens, but your mind says, oh, that's okay, it's a cartoon. Weird shit can happen in a cartoon because it doesn't have the laws of gravity.
There's no
You know,
jeopardy. Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't, it does. When I say it doesn't have the laws of gravity, I speak metaphorically. It doesn't conform to the rules of life.
Why your coyote is coming back from that ball? We all know that.
Well, yeah, exactly. Metaphorically, it's the same in every situation in a cartoon. Anything can happen, really. In real life, only certain things can happen, and even at that age, you understand that's the case. If and so the live action programs you're watching are either the ones that you're not interested in because they're boring and dull and for grown-ups, or they're for kids. And the ones for kids tend to sort of fall into two camps. They're either the sort of Grange Hill kind of thing, which sticks to the rules of normality but is filled with kids, so you're interested in what they're up to, or they go off into the realms of fantasy. And even if it's regular kids finding something fantastical, like say in Children of the Stones or I don't know, Dark Season or something, it's regular kids and there is a fantastical thing. I think the thing that defines Doctor Who is that you've got fantastical things and regular life, but they're not separated because the Doctor sits in the nexus between the two. The Doctor is normal and fantastical at the same time, and you don't see that anywhere else, especially not in like a hero character, and especially not in a program that's also for grown-ups. So there's something about that weirdness right at the heart of it that kind of attracts you in, I think.
So you're saying it can kind of straddle what you love as a child, the way you see it, and then the adult world too. So that's why it's perhaps a family show, maybe?
Well,
Why?
yeah,
Because it's all worlds in one.
yeah, but more than that, it's that at the heart of it is something that you don't get in any of the other worlds. I think the sort of Doctor character, the Doctor, the TARDIS, he puts his hand in his pocket to bring out a weapon, and it makes a whirring sound and undoes screws. You don't get that sort of thing anywhere else, I don't think, or at least not. It's not an ongoing thing throughout the entire sort of course of any other story. I think there are things in Doctor Who that just you wouldn't find anywhere else.
Put it this way, what else is there in your life that you've carried through since you were 5 and you still wang on about all the time and watch and read? And it's, there's nothing, is there?
No, but like I say, because it's got this thing that you
Because
can't
it's
find anywhere
unique.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's Simon,
Hmm.
did you have a particular thought about anything?
No, it was
You were gonna
interesting to hear you say that um I mean it does change through your life. I can go back to as you say, I must have been about 3 years old because first memories are Planet of the Spiders and the regeneration between John Pertwee and Tom Baker, which means that technically I must have been at most 3 years old. And
see, that's yeah.
why does that stuff stay with you?
Well, that's
What I
it.
say it one person turning into another person.
That
And
goes
that
back to
was
what I
what
was
got
just
me. That
yeah.
and the Daleks.
Well, that goes back to what I was literally just saying, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Because he just looks like a grown up, right?
Hmm.
And you don't, and as a viewer, you don't really, if you don't understand the concept of the program, you've got no understanding of regeneration. As a viewer, you just think, well, he just looks like a grown up, and then he changes into something else. Where else do you see that?
Yeah, yeah, no. And strangest thing I think was the fact that that was possibly the first Doctor Who I'd seen properly. So I'd seen this man with white hair walking around, and suddenly he turns into someone else, and then he stays. So where does that even figure in things? So for a young, very young mind, preschool. We're talking preschool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What impact does that have? But equally, as you go through life, I've been thinking about this that Doctor Who means different things. Then it was about imagination. It was all about being scared. It was literally going behind the sofa and hiding from Davros with my sister. And I
Sorry,
didn't.
I'm distracting you by looking out the window, but there's
Why was
somebody about to bring
Davros
a
with your
parcel to the
sister?
door.
um, she was pushing his wheelchair. But
Hang
it's
on, now you get my belly.
Thank you, Simon. That's exactly what I wanted to know.
Stuck it there, thanks.
oh dear.
Thank you,
Yeah,
cheers.
But yeah,
this
it
is
is. It is. Your relationship with it changes. I remember when it kind of
That's
got
real life intrusion
cancelled.
on the podcast for you. What are you
Yeah.
talking about while I'm away?
Sorry, but I know this is awfully infra dig, but I was just making a point. Um, that when the show was cancelled and we go into the 90s and the new adventures start happening, Doctor Who then becomes a kind of continuity with childhood, even though I'm going through secondary school and sixth form and ultimately university, and I really need a kind of lifeline just for half an hour of a Saturday just to feel safe again. And that's what it was doing at that time of life.
mm, mm. I mean, this is the thing. I went away and I didn't watch it consistently because sometimes I found it too intense and too scary. Um, but then when Peter Davison came along, that was the point where I said, "Oh, do you know what? I'm going to commit. I'm going to commit to this." And I watched every episode. JR, I will say I had terrible timing, but
No,
um,
no. What I'll say is that actually you gave yourself a continuity starting point, didn't you? When you come in the middle of something, it's difficult to it's difficult to give yourself over wholly to that thing because there are parts of that thing that you have missed and that insofar as you know you will never be able to experience. So even if you really love that thing, you can only love part of that thing because part of that thing is completely missing. But if there's a change point like you get between Tom Baker and Peter Davison, there is a starting point where you can love the whole of that next section of that thing. And so you can dive into that thing. And as much as you loved the stuff that went before, that's probably somebody else's thing in
mm,
terms of how your mind works. But on a subconscious level, you don't consciously think that's somebody else's thing, this bit's my bit.
mm,
But at the same time, part of your brain is thinking it starts again here and I start again with it. And so this bit becomes my bit. And I don't mean my bit as in my favorite bit or necessarily even when people say, who's your doctor? Because that's always a question, isn't it? That might not necessarily be the doctor that you go to, but somewhere in your mind, it's clicked over and started afresh, and you've clicked over and started afresh with it. And this time you can absorb it whole as a story from start to finish in some ways.
yeah. I mean, as I say, you should dip in and out of Tom Baker. So I remember Brain and Morbius. I remember, certain stories. Again, Brain and Morbius. The big thing in that was the brain battle scene, seeing the different doctors. And I remember that from the original transmission. And I remember reading the Target book just to get to that scene. I don't even remember if it was detailed or not, but it was that fascination, and that's what I latched onto. But obviously, as time went on, and the comic came out, which linked with everything else I was into, watching all of Peter Davison and Colin Baker coming in, and at the heart of it, me not really engaging with him in the same way. I did watch all of it. Sylvester McCoy came along a step too far. I couldn't, as much as I wanted to. I wanted to be proud of the show, and I wasn't. But again, that was my age.
Boo.
That's what Ian's saying as you go through life. I was at that stage. I was at college, and I felt like I needed to justify the show. And I used to talk with a friend who was a Doctor Who fan, but between the two of us, we were saying about no. We were saying to everyone else, no, actually, it's doing some really good things here and there. But I got to the point where I couldn't justify it. And then the show comes back, and that second generation. Now, I'm sure we'll get onto that as a conversation. Is now it feels a very different thing, far more meaningful in some respects. But I've gone past the facade, the tricks it's playing. It's gone past the story, and it's about how the program's made and who's involved and what it means to people. You know,
I
I can,
think, yeah, I think if I'd been at university and Doctor Who was still on TV, I would have stopped watching it because it is very much a totem of childhood at that point. And if you're
yes,
trying to, you know, um, have adult relationships, you need to be an adult. So I didn't have that dilemma, and Doctor Who wasn't a thing, so I didn't need to talk about it. And then suddenly, when it comes back, it's the coolest thing ever, and you can quietly go, "Well, I remember the Valiard." Mm.
You know what though? I did stop watching it, and so Doctor Who was this thing that I carried from childhood into adulthood, and so I turned 20 about, well, I know I turned 20 during the McCoy years, didn't I? So my later teenage years would have been during the Colin Baker, right? Actually, you'd think I was the perfect age for that, but no, I so
No.
totally, absolutely wasn't. But I did stop watching. I got at the age of whatever it was, 18 or whatever, I got so pissed off with the program, I stopped watching. But you know what? It lasted for 7 weeks and then I started watching again because I don't know, I just couldn't throw it away. You can't, there are some things you can't throw away because I think that's part of it, isn't it? If it had been a childhood thing and then as an adult it had come back and not appealed to me, maybe I could have just said, yeah, not for me and not bothered. But because I carried it from childhood into adulthood, when I tried to stop watching it as an adult, or as a late teenager, my mind just sort of said, "Nah, mate, you're wrong."
So I can
It's
kind of relate to that. But go on,
it's
Ian.
like giving up cigarettes, isn't it? You think you
Yeah.
can do it. You think it's going to be a walk in the park, but
I've not had a
Just
cigarette
when I thought they were out, they pull me back in.
I've not had a cigarette for 6 years and 1 week, and I still think of myself as a smoker.
yeah.
Well, this is, I mean, the only time I've maybe not, well, I gave up on it was probably after Sylvester's first season, which was kind of the cumulative effect of, trial wasn't very good. Season 24, I appreciate it more now, but it's not what you need when you're a teenager. It's
No.
it's kind of wacky out there. It's almost close to that Pip and Jane Baker, What on Earth or whatever it was. But then it came back to with Remembrance, and it was you watch that, and it was no, that was perfect for me, and it was just this is everything I want from the show. This was everything that excited me as a kid, but with kind of some adult thinking in there. It's
So
Mm.
what you're
that was
saying, John,
yeah.
sorry, is that you stopped watching at the end of season 24
I,
and
I start
started
watching.
watching again at the...
I start watching
Like
with
most of
Dragonfire. Yeah,
us, you
I start
ended.
watching with Dragonfire Part 3, and I started with Remembrance Part 1 again.
Wow. Oh
I
God.
did. It's the only time I've not bought Dwum or the whatever books are coming out.
Right,
That's
right.
so I took. It's. I was 13, 14. You're getting, there's music. There was in Mikey's football. There was girls and other things coming along. But then Remembrance comes along and that reasserts it.
Mm.
And then I had like Ian the New Adventures, which were I don't think a lot of them aged well in a lot of ways, but as this kind of books written for young men, as at who'd like that McCoy era. My God, perfect. Kept me
That's
in.
kind of taken us away from the question at hand,
Yeah.
though, really, because that's about continuity between the end of one show and the start of the sort of new version of it. And of course, what we really want to get down to is what was it that made you start watching it in the first place? Or, what was the specific thing that made you like this above all other things? Did you have any thoughts on that, John?
Well, what other shows are around as much as Doctor Who is? Drama-wise, it's the soaps and Doctor Who. It's essentially a lot of it is it's never properly gone away. Even when it was off there 15 years, you had McGann, you had Curse of Fatal Death do it. They came along and did, well, you've got the books, you've got Big Finish. It was always kind of there in the background. It's always been something to keep you hanging on.
But
And
more importantly,
so
what
it's
you're
all,
really
yeah.
saying is when you're a kid and some programs, let's use, since I brought it up earlier, let's use Children of the Stones for an example. that lasts exactly 6 weeks.
It's finite, yeah.
But Doctor Who is on for half the year. So maybe part of the equation is just the breadth of it. Maybe you just,
I think
because
so.
it's on for so much of the year, you're just absorbing so much more of it that it's kind of bullying you into liking it.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing with it when I came to it was 79, 80 properly. There's always a sense that there's so much more of it that you haven't seen, that you're never going to see.
Oh,
There's
don't go
always
there yet,
more.
John. That's
Um,
where I'm going to go.
all right,
You
fair
bastard,
enough.
you've stolen my thunder.
In many ways, we have the same mind, which is
Okay,
worrying.
well, I'm going to do it then. And just before I do, on a point of order, because there are probably people shouting at the screen or shouting at their earphones going, no, there were 7 episodes of Children of Stones. Yes, there were 7 episodes of it, and there was exactly 6 weeks between the first one was broadcast and the last one was broadcast. And that's the 6 weeks I was talking about. Archaeology. When this question came up, I thought, well, there are lots of reasons to like Doctor Who. The Daleks, the TARDIS, the girls, whatever. And I thought, but what's the thing that makes you really engage with it? And I've talked before many times about how you become a fan is when you go from somebody who reacts to something to somebody who becomes proactive in your appreciation of it. When you start buying the magazine, when you start buying VHS tapes, when you start buying Target books, and you are making a choice to engage with the program rather than it's just on the telly and you enjoy it. But I think the thing that draws you in a way that no other program really can or did or does. And these days it's different because these days you've got iPlayer and you've got the internet and you've got access to everything. So people these days wouldn't go on the journey in quite the same way. But when we were kids, at whatever point we started watching, we realized that there was a past. But with something like Coronation Street, the past doesn't really count because it's an ongoing thing that doesn't have story titles and doesn't have season breaks and stuff like that. Coronation Street's a bit like life. You sort of turn up at a certain point, 1968 or 1972 or whatever, and you just go from that point forwards. Doctor Who's not like life. Doctor Who is a series of discrete serials and discrete seasons. And at some point, your mind twigs that there is a finite amount of it. And because of the Target books, there's a finite amount of it that you can experience in one way or another. And depending when you got into it, it might be after they started releasing the audio cassettes of, stories that are gone, that are the missing episodes. So there's no part of it that there isn't some point at which you might be able to experience. But the bit that's really interesting, I think, the bit that really draws you in, I think, is the bit where you go, oh, there's a past of this that's available in some way, but before you know what that past consists of. So you go into a bookshop and you see Target books or audio CDs or whatever, or even you pick up a copy of the magazine before they print that list of all the stories, and they're talking about an adventure that William Hartnell had with the Aztecs, and you're thinking, where does that fit? What's that all about? And so you become, in some ways, not as proactively as I was talking about with, say, maybe you buying the Target books, but in your mind, you become a bit of an archaeologist because you're forever using a past that you don't know the details of to contextualize a present that you're living through. And so you're just putting flesh on the bones of the past, bit by tiny little bit, throughout the course of the point from when you become aware to the point at which you get to finally see the list of all the stories or whatever. And I think you're so drawn in by that little bit of archaeology that you can never let go again afterwards.
By coincidence, I actually
Ian's
bought.
desperate to say something, and
Go on,
Simon
Ian. Go on.
stood
Go
all
on.
over him. No, Simon, finish what you're saying.
Well, I was going to say, by coincidence, I finally bought my own copy of Doctor Who: A Celebration from Ryan, ironically enough, and that
Ryan, who's
book, I
not
just
here? The
yeah,
bastard.
I know. And I just used to take it out of the library on multiple occasions, just pouring through the book. And there would be only one picture of a particular companion, and you'd have to fill in the rest in your mind because there was only ever one black and white picture of Katerina,
Right.
and you
Yeah.
had to take from that. But like you say, it's that awareness of chronology, and that's quite an addictive thing. And I get that through my record collection and everything. You know, if you ask me, it's important to me the order in which albums came out because it's understanding that journey of the artist. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
same thing with Doctor Who. I couldn't. There are older seasons where I couldn't tell you what the order of episodes is, but actually, if there are linking things between them, then yes, you can work it out. But I think that's an addictive quality as well.
So what occurs to me when you were saying that is with this thing is being like a soap opera and kind of going on forever, and you come in and then you realize there was a before and you start piecing it together. Is that the same?
Speaking of the devil,
Oh, hello.
I'm sorry, Ian, but you've been interrupted by him. For here is the devil him very self.
Hello, I'm Ryan.
Right, you're gonna have
Ryan
to.
Ryan Magister.
We'll go with what Ian's. We'll go with what Ian's saying, and then Ryan, I'll try and fill you
So
in to where
so
we are.
my question is it the same with like football fans? Do you, when you get into a football team when you're 5, do you do the archaeology as well? Do you need to know about the history of the team and the
It's
previous
slight-
managers?
It's slightly
Speaking
different.
personally, yes.
Well, yeah, but it's a slightly different thing, isn't it? Because you can't experience that past, so you can't.
But you can get the stories.
Yeah,
you
you
get other
can.
people talking about it, but that's the history, which is lovely. Which
And
is
this is-
the same thing. I think.
And I guess it's why some people collect the programs, right?
Yeah, totally.
Because they're putting together that. So the programs for them are the target books for us in many
Yeah,
ways.
that's my dad's kind of history of his like youth. He's got all the programs from Aston Villa from 50s to up to the 90s.
And maybe psychologically, this is what humans do. They latch onto something and they go back and they build it up and they create their own world by learning about the thing they've chosen to learn about. And it's different for everyone, obviously, but for us 5, it's probably Doctor Who.
It's a
it
different
creates
thing
a
for it.
community, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just going to say it's a different thing for everybody, but it's the same ultimate effect. The community, so we've done all the interesting stuff, Ryan, and now we're on the really dull stuff. So we're talking about the things. So obviously we're talking about the things that
That's my
draw you to,
wheelhouse.
that keep you at Doctor Who. When you're a kid, from any of our generations, really, it's there on the telly to be experienced. But what is it that makes, what is the thing about the program itself that makes you a fan? And we talked about the fact that there's something unique about it. The fact that, for example, you've got a person who looks like just a normal person, but who can change into another person in a way that you don't get anywhere else. And so that kind of creates a unique thing about the program that only that program will do. And so even as a small child, because we're basically talking about when you're a small child, when you're 4 or 5 or whatever, and the things that you don't understand about the program, but that are the things that draw you to it. And then I went on to start, well, John and I and everybody went on to start talking about the fact that then there comes a point where you start digging into the history of the program in a way that you wouldn't with the soap opera. I made the point that when you join a soap opera, it's like when you join life, you just sort of turn up at a certain point and live it going forwards, but you don't really ever think about the past of it. Not in the way that you do if you're buying Target books or something. So I was saying part of the interesting bit is before you have a list of all the stories that happened before you started watching, and you are finding Target books, finding references in Doctor Who magazine, finding maybe audio cassettes of missing episodes, and trying to piece together how it all works.
Permission to lapse into somewhat therapeutic, a therapeutic lens of discussing and joining in on this discussion.
Are you going to bring us something new?
We'll find out. I'll try and be quick
Is this
because I've been
Freudian?
thinking about this. there are elements of it, but it's not Freudian in the sense of, is the TARDIS longer than it is wide and all that crap.
It's not about the girth, it's about the length. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it has been going for like 64 years now, give or take. So,
I mean, that's a lot of Viagra.
so the way,
Sorry, I just thought of the phrase "a wrinkle in time." Sorry.
Sorry, JR. Now I want to know what the postman was dropping off.
I do too. It's. I tell you what,
There's a lot of Viagra.
it's not entirely. Oh, is it gonna? It's not entirely un-TARDIS like.
No, it's little blue.
but why the parcel?
Yeah,
Well, it's not for me,
that's
so I
what
can't
they all
open
say.
it.
Thank you, Simon, because I saw that you laughed there. You got what I was. Yeah.
Nobody else was listening.
Listen. I started off this, and I was compared to Satan. So, and you guys are the one taking it down this. I nearly said dark alley then, but that's I've been watching a lot of 70s Christmas specials lately. Yeah, exactly. So, just from a therapeutic lens, reflecting on what you guys
Are you
have
going to get
said.
into serious stuff? Because we've been trying to avoid that, frankly.
No. Well, I mean, depends on how serious you want to take it.
The video of this conversation is going out on Christmas Day. The audio of this conversation is going out on New Year's Day. So almost everybody experiencing this will be somewhat under the weather for one reason or another.
Well, if you want a Doctor Who fan as a therapist, find my contact.
I'm doing
details.
everything I can to sort of get you off the straight and narrow here, Brian.
No, I did notice. Yeah, this is because of my cheeky quip when I came in, wasn't it?
No, it's because you turned up late, you bugger.
I turned up late because I thought it wasn't happening today. I misread
That
the
still
message.
sounds like a you problem though, because I read the texts and I rolled out of
You
bed.
only turned up on time because John made you.
I thought you were going to say you only turned up on
judge.
time because John made you.
Can I just say I want to hear what Ryan's got to say? Can
I mean,
so do I.
but I'm building it up beyond all proportion.
Okay, Iain, who has regenerated into a tea kettle, apparently.
I haven't done my hair yet.
He's got no hair to do.
No, sorry. Right, so from a therapeutic lens, the Doctor is like a secure base in an unsafe, let's say, universe because of the scale of it. Yeah, exactly. So the Doctor himself and Doctor Who as a televisual sort of institute offers something quite rare because he's a figure that faces terror without becoming cruel, and he keeps coming back and returning after loss, and he keeps choosing to care again and again. So it tells us as kids the universe is dangerous. From a historical perspective, it even tells us things like civilizations fall and people die. But the Doctor keeps showing up. And he's always curious and wanting to know more. He's always moral. He's always connected. And from an attachment system, okay, in life, we're shaped a lot of the time by like unpredictability and loss. So the Doctor who keeps showing up is regulating. And the key thing to understand is, unlike a lot of other shows, the Doctor doesn't promise us safety. He promises presence. And he models this idea of fear does not mean abandonment, which is really, really soothing to the nervous system and mental health regulation of a young child who is constantly surrounded by the unknown and danger. And the Doctor says, it's okay for things to be unknown. I am here.
Okay, let's get back to the sex jokes.
Also, he's got a big knob. There you go.
Which one's got the biggest?
Pertwee, come on.
This is Christmas Day. We're not having that conversation.
Pertwee's compensating. Come on.
Really, Tom.
All right. Pertwee
David
presents the
Tennant's
biggest
Tennant,
knob.
isn't it?
I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, true. But didn't Billy Piper say she's got no evidence for that at all?
It was just a joke.
Allegedly.
I know, but I'm just saying that was,
Yeah. I know that's what I mean. It was just a joke on the set, wasn't it? So it probably isn't true.
You're saying David Tennant's penis is a joke. You heard it here first. Folks.
We're saying that on Christmas Day. Come on, let's not be bringing David Tennant's penis. Let's not be waving David Tennant's
this...
penis into people's faces on Christmas Day. It's wrong.
He's not John Barrowman after all.
It's one of his more controversial acting tics.
I mean, going back to what you said, Ryan. Yes. But I don't think that in itself would be the reason why you fall in love with it. I think that's a thing it does. But maybe the reason why, so kind of what you're saying is that the Doctor is a parent figure in an uncertain universe, in a strange environment. And so, yes, that's true. But I guess you get that in other programs too, or you can get that in other programs too. I think, but I think putting that together with what we were talking about before you were here, so you're not aware of it anyway, is that the Doctor also is an unrecognizable figure in some ways, but recognizable in the ways you put it. So, oh, Ryan's gone.
So I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I don't know that you do get that from other programs because other heroes respond in different ways. You can kind of feel safe knowing that if something terrible happens, Superman's going to come along.
That's what I mean.
But you don't.
Oh no!
Because
do you not?
I don't know. I've never had that kind of deep relationship with a superhero kind of character. I don't know if it is the same relationship, and that is a really interesting point.
But that also it taps into the continuity thing of this thing that the Doctor goes into dangerous situations, and he is a constant. He's something that is constant. And I suppose if you really wanted to read stuff into it, is the fact that things get too bad and he becomes someone else.
Yeah,
and isn't that something that happens to all of us?
He's fallible and he's brave and he knows that he could die, but he will go and try and do what's right. And there are very few hero figures when you're a kid, or even in general, there are very few hero figures who make a decision to put themselves in peril week in, week out, knowing they could die. Because Superman's fine. He's never going to get injured. I mean, he might get injured. Batman might break a leg at some point, but he's broadly going to win.
Usually in
the Doctor is fallible.
Different versions of Christmas songs. That's usually where Batman breaks it. Oh no, it's Joker breaks his leg, isn't it?
Well, again, regeneration is radical self-compassion because it's permission to change without being erased. You can grieve who you were, but you can become someone new without betraying your values. So he lets kids have their identity be continuous, even as they're growing up. And when your mood changes, your capacity changes, your confidence changes. So you can outgrow yourself. You can move forwards. The Doctor's an adult who gives you permission to change and refuse the idea that if you get damaged or something bad happens to you, it's not the end. The Doctor literally shows us that.
But that's after the fact, and that's what we can absorb from it by the time there have been 4 or 5 Doctors. But if you're a kid in the William Hartnell era, no one's made the decision that the Doctor's going to keep bouncing back in different forms.
No,
and
true.
And
but remember, we're talking 3 years out of 60 odd.
So what we're saying is that for those of us who came in at a certain point, we can draw all this psychological depth to our fundamental underpinning love. But there's always been a reason for people to fall in love with the show before it started to work on that level that you're talking about.
Yeah,
so maybe it was just the Daleks.
I put shame to the podcast and I resign.
No, because the thing is, so 2 things. One, the thing is, when you're 5, you don't know the history of regeneration. When you see the Doctor regenerate for the first time, you don't know necessarily, unless your parents say, oh, do you know the Doctor's going to regenerate tonight? But you don't know that that's a thing. So that thing comes on you by surprise, give or take a few hours or a few days, that your parents might say they've seen it in the paper that it's going to happen. But I think the sort of Superman comparison is an interesting one, because I think, and so Simon and maybe John and Ryan, being comics fans, perfect segue into your comics podcast, right? What's it called, Simon?
Oh, Strangers in Space Strip Club.
Oh,
right. Perfect segue into the idea that there's going to be a comics spin-off podcast on our feed at some point in the new year. I think there are interesting comparisons to be made between superheroes and the Doctor. I don't think the Doctor is a superhero, and I don't think it behaves in quite the same way. And kids do get into superheroes in the same way as they get into Doctor Who. So maybe there's a slight crossover there. And I think maybe the slight crossover is going back to what I was saying before, but also going back to what Ryan was saying just now, this becomes part of it. I think it's about having a hero who's not the same as normal people, but it's not so far removed from normal people that they're unrecognizable. So they become this sort of idealized character who has all the aspects of a normal person, but something else going on as well. And so with the Doctor, it's the TARDIS and the sonic screwdriver, and oh my God, they've changed into a new person who's just as likable as the old one. I think the reason why it's an interesting comparison is because superheroes change and change back and change back. And so there's a sort of on off switch about their heroism. And so there's a, and so
It
Clark
kind
Kent,
of does. It kind of does behave like that, though. Because a lot with superheroes, when you've read enough of them, it's about the writer's different take on them, or the writers, the artists. And Doctor Who does that as well. So the writers and the artists are addressing the kind of now. So they can kind of, superheroes have lasted, I think, partially because they can always function as a commentary on what's going on in the world as it is. So it's a relatable thing.
but
And
again,
Doctor Who does the same thing.
But again, that's something that you don't have any appreciation of until you've
But
seen enough of it to understand that that's what's going on. This conversation is about when you first experience it. So if you've got a regeneration in the first sort of 2 or 3 years that you're watching it,
look, I have the Gopolis, and I've got, if you've been remotely interested in Doctor Who, from that point on, it's almost impossible to avoid that there'll be a new Doctor because the publicity is so huge around it. So that can become a jumping on or off point in itself.
oh, absolutely. But the concept of regeneration to somebody who's, let's say, 5 and who's been watching it for a year or is aware of having been watching it for about a year or so, that's going to be a big part of the sort of formulation in your mind of what this program is and how it's working on you.
So to go back to what we were saying about the kind of different archetypes of heroes, I can remember when the kind of USP of the Doctor when I was, 5, 6, 7, is he's not like really muscular. He doesn't hit people. He doesn't have space guns. He doesn't win physically. He's not a big, he wins because he's clever. And maybe we were maybe we were the clever kids. We read a lot. We were a bit weedy. We didn't necessarily identify with the big buff Batman, Superman kind of figures. There were kids in school who were like taller than us and big and they could run fast, and they were the superheroes. We were the Doctor. We were the weirdo who knew everything.
So the Doctor has lots of points of comparison with superheroes, the changing face, or in a superhero's case it might be a flick of the hair and a cape or whatever, but the changing physical appearance is one of those things. Beating the baddies, always doing something to beat the baddies, is another thing. So the Doctor Who, by not being a superhero, is the superhero for people who don't like superheroes. Is that basically
what was that? What's that Moffat line? His superhero, basically he's got two hearts because he cares that much.
Yeah,
which is a great line.
Right, but yes, it is a great line and it sums it up. But obviously, it's more complicated than that because I don't think that is the Doctor's only superpower. Regeneration obviously is another literal superpower in some ways. But yeah, just being a character who is unique and yet recognizable. It's like when Clark Kent turns into Superman, that's normal person, superhero, and they are two distinct things. But the Doctor Who, both of those things are going at the same time. The Doctor is a normal person who is a superhero at the same time. The Doctor never stops being Superman. He's always Superman. But at the same time, the Doctor never stops being Clark Kent. He's always Clark Kent. And so he's Clark Kent and Superman all the time at the same time, rather than distinct from each other. And maybe that's what's interesting about it, because maybe there's a case to be said that Clark Kent, there's a certain dullness about that because it's one aspect, and at the time he's Clark Kent, you only get that aspect. And Superman, there's maybe something dull about that because it's just one aspect. And at the time he's being Superman, you only get that one aspect. But Doctor Who, being both things at the same time, there's something weird and mysterious and unknowable about that that makes your mind engage subconsciously, probably, because you're not aware that you're doing this. But as a 5-year-old, you know what Superman is, and it's really easy to delineate. But you don't know what Doctor Who is because it's this weird thing that looks normal but isn't normal, but also looks alien but isn't alien. So it's got all this thing going on at the same time. And somehow you have to engage with that and try and make sense of it at the same time as just sitting back and enjoying a story where he defeats the Daleks.
And maybe fundamentally, the other thing is that because while you were talking, I was trying to identify, well, what is the Doctor's superpower? And it's not even that he's the cleverest person in the room, because there are stories like the Caves of Androzani where it doesn't matter what he knows. He wins. He doesn't win. He loses, but he survives that story because of his compassion.
And let's be honest, most of the time he doesn't do anything that clever, really.
No, no. But the reason he keeps turning up and trying is this amazing depth of compassion. Whereas Superman will fight a monster because it's there to be punched in the face, and Batman will go out at night and remorselessly punch criminals in the face because he can. But the
mentally
Doctor,
ill people,
yeah,
he's a bastard.
Yeah, but the Doctor shows up
this is
time and
be
again.
The first episode of Strip Club, by the
way. The Doctor does what he does because he cares and because he's full of love and compassion. And maybe we don't realise it, but maybe that is such an attractive proposition that that's what's hooking us.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe that's why after 50 years of it percolating, we try and live that kind of life ourselves.
Well, yeah, he's accepting of everyone.
Yeah.
As long as that person isn't inflicting pain upon someone or something else.
Yeah.
And that's all we kind of ask as human beings, is just the ability to be ourselves and not be told that we can't be.
Yeah.
Or indeed tell anyone else that they can't be what they want to be.
Because this is really interesting.
He's the ultimate woke figure.
He is. Well, yeah. It was there. It was there the whole time.
Yeah, because part of the criticism of the Russell James and and Stephen Moffat eras is that Doctor Who, they saw this Doctor as kind of superhero, particularly when you had Tennant being lifted up by the angels in Voyage of the Damned. And I think it's misplaced with the Moffat years, but they wanted the Doctor to be the guy who scraped his exams, who just got by, who found a way to get by. They wanted him to be absolutely imperfect, to be absolutely this human figure.
And also,
well, go
on.
Sorry, I'm just champing at the bit here. I still haven't learnt the rhythm of this podcast, despite having been on here for a while, where you've got to jump in and seize the day.
Oh, yes.
That's interesting.
It's a conversation, not a panel.
Just talk over JR. It's fine. Everyone else does.
I'll start just doing this, and if that doesn't, so one thing I'd like to point out is that in an odd way, Superman has regenerated over the years, because apart from anything else, the duality of Clark Kent and Superman has flip-flopped. Because to start with, Superman was the real person, Clark Kent was the disguise. Then he got changed years later to Clark Kent was the real person and Superman is what he can do. So there is that element of it. And in terms of morality, Superman regulates like your fear of collapse, because he's the person who he's earned security, in the sense of, if you know Superman's around, you're thinking, will someone catch me if I fall? And you know that. Whereas with the Doctor, the question has become, if I screw up, if I do something terrible, can I still choose good? Because the Doctor chooses. That's become like a moral imperative. Superman says, this is who I am, and the Doctor says, this is who I'm trying to be. Now that's an evolved thing with Doctor Who, because to start with, he was just a doddery old scientist who was very clever, who did these things, But as it's evolved, you get into all kinds of feels like, Superman is virtue ethics. Goodness is internal. Power's guided by principle. Morality is a steady situational thing. His ethics are his identity. But the Doctor is a bit scarier because he's existential. I mean, meaning isn't guaranteed. Morality has to be renewed. You have to choose it every time. Every decision risks failure.
I don't think the Doctor does choose morality. I think this is another interesting aspect of it. I think it's very easy to see the Doctor as a moral hero. I don't think the Doctor is a moral hero. I think the Doctor is an accidental moral hero.
Well, that's the choice element, though. That's what I'm saying,
But I
because
don't think it's a choice.
ethics is action.
But I don't think it's a choice. I think it's something that you fall into, and I think it's a series of stories about a character who doesn't really know they care. So obviously it's an innate thing rather than a thing on the surface. And every now and again you get an interesting bit where one of the writers will go off and examine that. Peter Capaldi and Stephen Moffat, Colin Baker, and well, that's not really an examination, but you know what I mean. And right back at the start, William Hartnell doesn't come in like that. But the program knows that it has to have a hero. And so once William Hartnell becomes established as the hero instead of Ian Chesterton, and in an ongoing sense, the Doctor is. And when we all come in, what was your first story, Ryan?
Oh, no, you're asking. Now I've got to go back to
just first season, first Doctor.
Okay. I think it was the very tail end of Tom Baker.
Right. Okay. So, but again, like before the modern day, before you had lots of VHS tapes, things like that, before you could experience Doctor Who out of order, we all came in at a point where you have to experience Doctor Who in order, and you don't have access to the Doctor Who that goes before.
Yeah.
So this conversation is about what was it then at that point. And so what I'm saying is, then at that point, for all of us, the Doctor is this moral hero, but the Doctor doesn't see themselves as a moral hero, so it's not a crusade. This is the entire point. This is what separates them. Superman goes out and it's a moral crusade. The Doctor goes out and going back to what you said about the Doctor turning up and something's happening, and the Doctor does something clever, or maybe not always clever, but whatever, the Doctor will come up with a solution. The Doctor comes up with a solution not because necessarily right must vanquish bad, but because something's happening that is just out of the normal order of things, and the Doctor wants to set things straight. Something in the Doctor says, set things straight, come up with a solution for this weird situation that you've got into. A lot of the time, I mean, it's monsters and villains and stuff like that. So it's very black and white in that sense. But a lot of the time, the Doctor's just turned up, and this stuff is going on that needs solving. And I think a lot of the time the program is just about solving whatever the situation is that's going on. But
that's still a moral code, though. That's still a by definition an existential moral code. He's choosing, because he could get in the TARDIS and leave. So it's still a choice. The Doctor needs the external validation that Superman doesn't, because that's why he has companions.
If it was a moral crusade, the Doctor would not rest until the Master was dead, the Daleks were destroyed, and the Cybermen were destroyed. And when the Doctor tries to do that in the Seventh Doctor era, that's where he becomes a slightly different figure.
But the thing is, it seems like everyone's arguing that morality is an absolute. And it's not. This is why I said it's existential. It's a choice. The reason he lets the Master go is because
existential is an absolute.
No, existentialism is a series of choices, though. It's absolute in the sense it has a definition, yeah. But it's like there's no ethical code that comes from on high. There's no absolute good, no absolute evil. It's a series of choices. And the Doctor is always making a series of choices because he could always leave, if nothing else. That's why he's got the companions to keep him on the straight and narrow. And why, as Iain said, the Seventh Doctor goes a bit wibbly when he actively pursues this. He's someone living his life and makes the choice each time to do the right thing, to save this planet, to save this civilization. So when I'm saying morality, I'm not talking like a religious thing like that. I'm saying that he makes the choice each time. But it's not purely internal.
I'm saying, as a 5-year-old, that's not the thing that draws you in. It's the situation that draws you in.
It's not the thing that draws you in consciously, but maybe it is subconsciously.
But the
maybe
morality,
that is what's attractive about that kind of hero.
Yeah, the morality is the lesson you take away from it.
Yeah.
The fact that the Doctor does do right is the lesson you take away from it. But
because the Doctor represents being good is a choice. And that's quite empowering to a child. Well, being good is a choice.
Yeah, but but not in such black and white terms. But the point is, I think the thing that is interesting as a kid is that the Doctor turns up and there's Daleks. Rather than
Yeah, and the Doctor shows you that being brave and being moral is a choice, because the Daleks are supposed to be pure evil and really scary, and you could run away. And the Doctor says you've got to stand up to those kind of things, and that's a choice. Because, like I said, the thing is, one of the key elements of Doctor Who, the TARDIS, is the ultimate means of escape. It's either a journey into adventure, or you can run away when you're, having a brown trousers moment. And the Doctor always chooses to stay and fight.
Maybe it's more important that the Doctor always survives. We see him week in, week out going up against these terrifying monsters, aliens and villains, but he always survives. And maybe that's what we're there for. Maybe we just want to see a guy who we can kind of identify with because he's like us. He's a bit silly, funny and weird. And he always survives.
Yeah, probably.
Because the Doctor is the integrated self, and the Superman, going back to that, is the ideal self. That's why the Doctor is more relational and Superman is more aspirational, because Superman is this ideal and the Doctor is quite like us, which is part of the reason why, they've had him adopt Earth as his home planet, and he loves human beings and he forgives everyone despite the screw ups and all that jazz, and he sticks with us. And
he only got a third in his Astro.
Yeah, was it 51% in
51%? Useless.
51%.
Well, and this goes back to what I was saying before. It's about how the Doctor is like us, but not like us at the same time, rather than, a simple thing of, he fights evil. It's the evil that's interesting rather than the Doctor in that he fights evil. But if it's he fights evil and he's like us, but not like us, that's where the interesting thing comes out, I think, because all programs are about people, not all programs, but, all adventure programs are about people overcoming odds and fighting evil and, in one way or another. But I think the thing that's really interesting about this is the character and the trappings of the character that are unique to this program. And when I say they're unique to this program, I don't just mean no other program's got a sonic screwdriver, because, lots of other programs have got gadgets. Batman's got gadgets. It's not about the fact that they've got gadgets. It's about what the gadgets represent. Most other gadgets are either guns or, they are things
weaponized.
Yeah. Whereas here, the Doctor's gadget is, something that provokes an intellectual sort of engagement rather than
undoing
physical.
A screw.
No, because that's not what the sonic screwdriver really is it?
Yes, it
We're back
is.
to Freud again. We're back to Freud.
Well, but it stopped being. The sonic screwdriver stopped being that after its first use, didn't it?
And it didn't become this Harry Potter's magic wand until the revival either.
No,
so when we're falling in love with the show, it's in this kind of, it's still basically a tool, but we know it's got a lot of uses.
Didn't they blow up the Fifth Doctor's one though, because the writer said he was using it to get out of too much stuff? I think the rot started fairly early, didn't it? Sorry.
Yes, but the point I'm making is not what it does, but what it represents. And so, yes, at that point in the sort of 70s, it's there to undo things.
Yeah.
But it's not there to blow them up.
Whereas now it can be if it has to be.
No, I like it. I like what it is now, because it's the same thing. But
it's Harry Potter's wand now.
No, it's not. It's a mobile phone, Ian. The sonic screwdriver.
It's a mobile phone that he can defeat the Cybermen at the cliffhanger of the first Cyberman two-parter. It's, he can resolve whatever story just by going to a new setting and going widdly wee.
Yeah, but you could. But to be honest, it's a good job the sonic screwdriver was never in Doctor Who when the Cybermen were in Doctor Who, because something that undoes screws just by pointing it would be your perfect mechanism to defeat a robot, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
So, and let's not forget, it can also regenerate barbed wire fencing somehow, which I still maintain is the most stupid thing it can do.
It reattaches it.
Go back and watch that episode. It regenerates it from nothing. It's not reattaching it. It grows it. I swear to you.
Oh yes, it grows it, but I mean the point is.
Oh well, I love the way you just. Of course, it grows it. What else do you barbed wire?
The script is asking for it to reattach it.
Right.
The special effect is how do you put that on the screen? And there are two bits that are slightly further away from each other, and you show them coming together. But the point point is that it reattaches it. I think this conversation has gone slightly off the rails.
So just to come back in, it's all about the theme music and it's all about the monsters.
Yeah, but can I just make the point that
particularly
now,
the Peter Howell theme music.
for me now, the show symbolises something very, very different in as much as, at a time when the thought of being outwardly proud of being British has become a bit of a distasteful thing. But actually, Doctor Who represents Britain at its best. That it's much like the music is that for such a physically small nation, the things we achieve are just quite incredible. And the very thought of American money going into Doctor Who, I thought that's kind of missing the point. And for me, my love of Doctor Who has revived, which it did from 2005 onwards, in a way that I never thought it would, and that would largely to do with the fact that it was suddenly within reach, and that it was kind of touchable. And it's a bit like going to see your local football team or something like that, and you root for it. So yeah, I just for me that's kind of what it's about now.
So I'm just quickly, this is for the YouTube release. You look like you're in a 60s Batman TV show at the moment because you're really tilted to one side. Very Dutch, Dutch
glorious.
But I think
I don't know why it's done that.
It's a really good point you've raised there because this idea of the foreign money and everything, and Doctor Who being quintessentially British, despite the fact that he doesn't have a drop of British blood in him.
No,
and Britain being, let's not kid ourselves, a bastardized nation. We've been invaded by everyone. We've got influences from everyone.
Yeah.
So on a very fundamental level, he's very British by virtue of not being British, which is what most idiots who are patriotic about
he's an immigrant hero.
He's an immigrant hero.
Yeah, he is.
Much like Superman. This is why the Doctor is kind of our Superman in that regard as well.
And it's why The Timeless Children is the best Doctor Who story ever made.
I don't engage in hatred very often, and I'm not a violent man, and I'm going to leave it there.
Although, of course, Doctor Who is about, Britain being invaded by people from outside and the Doctor sending them back on their merry way. So maybe in that respect.
God, yeah.
There you go. There is part of that. It's rooted in that science fiction tradition, which is the fear of the outside of the British Empire. But the thing is, it's such a vast text. If you want to dive into it and see what you want to see about it, somewhere there is a version that will suit you. No matter your tastes,
ladies and gentlemen,
he's made it
the
Brexit
real
now.
Magic of Doctor Who. Until we do this again, or if indeed there is a second part of this that's tagged onto the back end of this podcast, but I'm starting to suspect that might be a separate episode in its own right now, considering this one's nearly on an hour and a quarter. I was JR.
I was Indefinable Magic.
I was John.
I was Ryan.
And I was Simon.
And we will speak again soon.